Peace and blessings to the family. Peace and blessings to the family. Welcome again to Muhammad Speaks News on YouTube. Please visit us on our website, www.muhammadspeaksnews.com. That's www.muhammadspeaksnews.com. You'll be able to see it at the top of the screen. Please subscribe to us on this channel, as well as paid subscription to our website at muhammadspeaksnews.com. We do have advertising opportunities on our website, as well as low as $25 a month. Please, if you're interested, please email us at muhammadspeaksnews@gmail.com. Salute and shout out to the family. And I wanted to go into today a subject that's about a week old with regards to our sister Sonia Massey, who was fatally shot in her Springfield, Illinois home this past summer on July 6th. So we see that the Justice Department has opened a civil rights investigation of the Illinois Sheriff's Office after the shooting of Sonia Massey. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division has sent a letter to the Illinois Sangamon County Sheriff's Office 4 months after a deputy fatally shot Sonia Massey while responding to her call about a possible prowler outside the 36-year-old black woman's home. So what we just want to do real quickly, and this article is covered on Muhammad Speaks News. As you will find, we covered news for the black world, and we just want to bring a little more investigative depth to the article, as it is mostly informative, but we do want to just take a look into how the mechanisms and workings, when these things happen to our people, the processes that the local law enforcement, local judicial system, federal, state judicial system handles these things, to bring a little more awareness to the process, as well as to empower ourselves. That's what we do here at Muhammad Speaks, investigative journalism that we would like to bring forth to our people to serve the purpose of what a true and free press does through freedom of speech, empowerment of our people. We are Muhammad Speaks, news for the black world. So as you can see on the screen, we do have the official letter to the Sangamon County, Illinois Sheriff's Department, from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and we hope to get this up on the website to have another look. And playing in the background, we won't show it, the full thing, is the loop of the actual body camera incident of the shooting of our sister Sonia Massey. And we always have to follow these things through to the end, because what happens is when the news cycle tends to let go of these topics, we tend to forget about these people. We also see that there was a $100 million payout to the family of Botham Jean in the brother that was murdered in his apartment by the police officer there in Dallas, Texas. That was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but we do see that these things take years to process, and we have to have the endurance to stay with it in order to see how justice plays itself out, and the type of capacity and bandwidth that we have to have as a people to stay with it. It doesn't serve us well to go with the trend and stay with what's trending and what's hot at the moment and then forget about it the minute that it's out of sight, and then we're only dusted off when a new incident happens. This sister reminds me so much of the sister Sandra Bland, and we should take a look into how that was being processed. Is that closed out? Did we receive justice? Does anybody know? So with that said, let's go into the letter from the Department of Justice. And this letter is dated November 14th, 2024. This is sent to Paula Crouch, the Sangamon County Sheriff, Sangamon County Sheriff's Office in Springfield, Illinois, regarding Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, Sangamon County, and Sangamon County Central Dispatch System. Dear Sheriff Crouch and Mrs. Mueller and Milheiser, this letter notifies you that the United States Department of Justice, through the Civil Rights Division's Federal Coordination and Compliance Section and Disability Rights Section, collectively DOJ, Department of Justice, has reviewed the information alleging that the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, SCSO, Sangamon County, and the Sangamon County Central Dispatch System, SCCDS, may be in violation of the discrimination requirements of the following statutes and implementing regulations. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and its implementing regulations, the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act and its implementing regulations, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act and implementing regulation. Title VI prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. Excuse me. The Safe Streets Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, and sex in programs and activities receiving specified law enforcement assistance funds, is a recipient of federal financial assistance from the DOJ, including the Safe Streets Act funds. Under Title II, no qualified individual with a disability shall, by reason of such disability, be excluded from participation in or be denied the benefits of services programs or in activities of a public entity, or be subjected to discrimination by any such entity. Further, Title II prohibits failing to make reasonable modifications to policies, practices, or procedures necessary to avoid disability discrimination unless doing so would fundamentally alter the nature of the service, program, or activity. Title II applies to state and local governments and their agencies and departments, including Sangamon County, SCSO, and SCCDS. The Department of Justice has reviewed reports about the SCSO deputies' fatal shooting of Sonia Massey, a Black woman experiencing a mental health crisis. While responding to Ms. Massey's 911 call for help on July 6, 2024, the incident raises concerns about SCSO's interactions with Black people and people with behavioral health disabilities, as well as SCSO's policies, practices, procedures, and training regarding community policing. Bias-free policing, response to behavioral health crises, use of force, de-escalation, affirmative duty to intervene, affirmative duty to render medical aid, and body-worn camera, BWC, policies and compliance. Additionally, the incident prior and prior 911 calls involving Miss Massey in the days before her death indicate possible issues with Sangamon County SCSO and SCCDS's emergency response and dispatch system. Finally, DOJ has reviewed reports concerning SCSO's employment practices, including allegations that a lack of racial diversity at SCSO impacts SCSO's provision of policing services in communities of color. These allegations collectively raise concerns of race and disability discrimination prohibited by Title VI, the Safe Streets Act, and Title II. So basically, all of this information is calling out the potential violations by the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, as well as what specific codes that they have violated, and the possibility that the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office does receive federal assistance, that if the Sheriff's Office of Sangamon County is found to be in violation of these codes, then that could be a threat to their federal assistance. So if a condition is, and I'm just a layman here, I'm not someone who's legally trained, just someone who is reading and using logic, it would sound like it would make sense to ensure that these law enforcement departments are completely compliant with federal law in every way before the funding is taking place. This seems a little bit reactive to an incident, and it seems like, and I could be wrong, that these law enforcement agencies just receive funding and are not checked or not confirmed to be compliant with certain federal statutes before the money is given to them. It doesn't seem like they're even routinely inspected or investigated to ensure that they remain compliant until these incidents happen. Is that a mistake? We don't know. As a recipient of federal financial assistance from DOJ, SCSO must provide access to information that can be used to determine whether it is complying with applicable non-discrimination requirements. Failure to provide access to information necessary to determine compliance could result in the suspension or termination of the federal financial assistance or a civil suit to enforce the rights of the United States. Title VI Safe Streets Act and their applicable implementing regulations provide opportunities to resolve identified concerns through voluntary compliance prior to engaging in suspension and or termination of federal financial assistance or further proceedings to enforce the rights of the United States for violations of Title VI and the Safe Streets Act. So that was part of my concern from the previous section, where now, as a reaction, the DOJ is going after this police department after having received financial funding for God knows how long. And this is totally reactive, and who knows how many of these these law enforcement agencies are receiving funding, and this has been caught on tape. But what about those people that have suffered? And really, the United States can be seen as liable for the deaths of countless Black people because these law enforcement agencies are receiving direct funding from the United States government. So the United States government essentially has a hand in the murder of this woman. Just my reasoning, not saying that that's what it is. Regardless of whether public entities receive federal funds, Title II authorizes DOJ to investigate complaints of disability discrimination. Informally resolve investigations where appropriate, make findings of fact and conclusions of law where a violation is found and resolution is not achieved, and attempt to negotiate voluntary resolutions for finding violations. DOJ also is authorized to take appropriate action, including filing of action in federal district court to enforce the ADA if voluntary compliance is not achieved after findings. So is it that the DOJ has to sue to cut off funding from federal law enforcement agencies? What if they lose? I'm not sure what the process is. Maybe someone can fill me in on that. We're just reading the letter from the DOJ Civil Rights Division to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office of Springfield, Illinois, where Sandra Massey, the law enforcement agency responsible for the murder of our innocent sister, Sonia Massey. We understand that a federal prosecution of former Deputy Sean Grayson is ongoing. Our investigation is not intended to interfere or conflict with that prosecution. If you think any of the information requested in this letter would compromise that prosecution, let us know. That's very considerate of the DOJ to do. Initial information request and next steps. So this is what the DOJ is like. We would like you to send this to us before Christmas. To further facilitate our investigation of this matter, please provide the following documents and information by December 14, 2024, 30 days, before we go on Christmas break. Please preserve all relevant or related documents and information. We ask that you contact us within 10 days of the date of this letter or by November 25th to discuss the production format of responsive documents and electronically stored information. 1. The name, address, telephone number, email addresses of the individuals to whom this office should direct any future questions and correspondence. Please indicate if they have authority to negotiate a settlement of this matter. Organizational charts for the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, Sangamon County SCCDS, reflecting their structures and change of commands at all times from January 1st, 2020 to the present. The name, address, telephone number, and email address for ADA coordinators for SCSO, Sangamon County, SCCDS, if any. A copy of all documents related to Sonia Massey. Please include all phone logs, all dispatch records, all transcripts and recordings of 911 calls seeking help for Sonia Massey, all transcripts, recordings, and other documents related to the dispatch of officers or personnel to respond to 911 calls for assistance for Sonia Massey. A list of all SCSO deputies or other personnel in the scene responding to any calls, 911 or otherwise, related to Miss Massey, including the deputy who responded on July 6, 2024, together with Deputy Grayson, provide each individual's position and rank, as well as the bureau, division, and or unit to which the individual was assigned, and F, copies of all reports related to Sonia Massey, and in any instance where a report was not completed, provide applicable dates and locations to which SCSO or any type of responder that SCCDS can dispatch responded. So I guess SCCDS is their emergency, it's the police, fire department, their 911 number, I lost my cat, or there's a rabid dog in the neighborhood. So I guess that's where the dispatch goes out for Sangamon County. And also, one thing I wanted to bring to light here is that this wasn't even the first call. So this seems to be an ongoing issue, and the police came of prejudice to that house. Maybe it was an ongoing joke among the officers that this woman, constantly calls us, and they just came with that attitude. And I'm not going to play the video here, but the condescending manner in which there was some familiarity, it appears to me that the police approached the house and engaged our sister, Sonia Massey, and then as a result, it just escalated or disintegrated, however you want to look at it, into the senseless murder. I mean, the hot pot of water. How many times have we been threatened with something that's non-fatal and had the option of having a response that could result in that person dying? However, it just appears that there was some, you know, predetermined attitude, if that's the right word, to engage with this sister, and this is something that has ongoing. And it'd be good to see if these probably reports have been made public, and hopefully this is something we can track here at Muhammad Speaks News. For those that are subsequently watching this downstream, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and salute to everyone who is watching this video. We are reading the DOJ's letter to Sangamon County Sheriff's Office, which was the sheriff's office that was responsible for the death of Sonia Massey. All dash camera and BWC footage related to the events listed in response to request number 4. For the period January 20th to the present, identify whether SCSO has provided or currently provides any form of alternative response models when responding to behavioral health crises or interacting with someone with a behavioral health disability, such as co-responder teams, mobile crisis teams, or crisis intervention training programs. Provide a description of each form of alternative response and all related policies. These types of responses, when there's incidents of racism in these killings, we always have to look for legalese or the most appropriate terms that discuss everything other than racism. What I mean is they have to really needle in and drill down on the behavioral health crises as something that will stick in this investigation to show that the police were wrong in this woman's death. When, of course, this is the Civil Rights Division, so they have to go within the letter of the law. And because the legalese, the terms that would help prosecute something, and I know lawyers will watch this and be snickering because it doesn't sound like I know what I'm talking about. But with that said, I'm just saying that they have to use the peripheral terms, the peripheral violations, as opposed to what it actually is, right? Because in America, they make racism policies so ambiguous that it's hard for them to stick. I mean, what should be called out in this is pure racism, right? But of course, when you use civil rights to approach and engage these matters, these are going to be the outcomes, because racism is so ambiguous, is so slippery that you can't pin it down, you can't nail it down, unless you're looking at something within the scope of an entire people. And that this is the human rights issue. And when you look at the collective of the people, then you can say, well, we've seen this thing play out thousands of times in the history of the United States, so racism can be called in this issue. But when you use civil rights, and when you use, and you're in the context of the United States of America, they're going to make sure that they're not held liable internationally, and this is not looked at as a human rights violation, but it's just a violation of a person's, the response to a person's disability. Anyway, continue. So the bias, for the most part, that's going to be called out here is the bias based on the fact that this was a person that was having a mental health crisis. For the period January 1st, 2020, just number 7. This is still the request. I'm getting annoyed. This is a request from the DOJ to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. This is number 7. This is an entire laundry list of things that they're requesting. It's like a request for proposal, RFP. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all SCSO policies, procedures, rules, guidelines, standards of practice, and related documents that address A. Community policing, B. Bias-free policing, C. Interacting with people with disabilities, D. Response to behavioral health crises, E. Use of force, F. De-escalation, G. Affirmative duty to intervene, H. Affirmative duty to render medical aid, and I. BWCs. Include all versions in effect during any part of the relevant time period. A. For the period January 1st, 2020 to present, a description of all SEO trainings on community policing, B. Bias-free policing, C. Interacting with people with disabilities, D. Response to behavioral health crises, E. Use of force, F. De-escalation, G. Affirmative duty to intervene, H. Affirmative duty to render medical aid, and I. BWCs. Include the method of delivery of training, the identity of the trainer, the frequency of delivery, and any related training materials. 9. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, identify all codes SCCDS uses to categorize calls, including all codes that can be assigned to call involving a behavioral health crisis or person with behavioral health disability. For the period January 1st, 2020, this is number 10, to present, identify all possible responders SCCDS can dispatch to call related to behavioral health crises or someone with a behavioral health disability. 11. For the period January 1st, 2020 to present, identify all SCCDS policies, procedures, rules, guidelines, standards of practice, and related documents to addressing identifying calls involving someone with a behavioral health disability, responding to calls involving behavioral health crises, and interacting with someone with a behavioral health disability. 12. For the period January 1st, 2020 to present, and the description of all SCCDS training on interacting with people with disabilities and handling calls involving behavioral health crises. Include the method of delivery of training, the identity of the trainer who has been trained, when the training took place, the frequency of delivery, and any related training materials. 13. A copy of all training records for SCSO Deputy Sean Grayson, who is the officer that fired the shots on Sonia Massey, that's me talking, and the other SCSO Deputy who responded to Miss Massey's 911 call on July 6, 2024. Include the dates of training, the method of delivery of the training, and the associated training materials. 14. Provide the names of all individuals involved in developing, coordinating, and implementing, administering, or participating in SCSO's deputy recruitment and selection processes, including individuals administering any psychometric exams, the dates they were involved in the recruitment or selection process, the positions they held when they were involved in the recruitment or selection processes, and whether they were currently employed by SCSO or Sangamon County if they were not currently employed by SCSO or Sangamon County. This is a laundry list, right? On one incident where they will spend time. Again, this is particularly why we should pursue reparations as a collective, because these types of things, these letters are flying around, white papers are flying around for tens of hundreds of thousands of black people that have been violated all over the country on a daily basis. Now, it's just going to take them a month to compile all of this information. They're going to have all types of, what do they call it, water fountain water cooler conversations. Well, then they're going to, a lot of fudging of information. Of course, we have these discrimination trainings and all of that, or they're going to rush to have discrimination trainings and all of that, or they're going to go back to the actual the actual manual that enables them to have this federal assistance, and maybe the federal government requires them to have these trainings one time in a year, so they'll fulfill the one training and they'll pull the training from somewhere else to ensure, and then when it's found out there are gaps in the discrimination training, they'll just get you get a slap on the wrist. Maybe we'll cut some of the funding, but we see that you had it one time. You see how you just get bogged down in nothingness types of responses here. Again, this is a whole RFP that will bog an entire department down. Civil Rights Division, I'm sure they're well staffed, but seriously and honestly, not to take away anything from what happened to the sister, it is tragic. And in order for us to prevent this from happening, it is imperative that we pursue reparations collectively, that we pursue self-determination vigorously, that we separate from these people, because they will just bog you down in nothingness, and you will get hope that something will happen. Everyone is excited that the DOJ is pursuing this, and this seems to be about nothing. But I ain't finished. Let's see where this goes. For the period January 1st, excuse the kids, they're outside, they're having a ball. So, the children of my neighborhood. So, excuse if you hear them in the background. 15. For the period January 1st, 2020 to present, a description of SCSO's hiring processes for deputies, including recruitment, background check, psychometric evaluation, reference, and selection processes. 16. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, and a description of SCSO's hiring processes for lateral transfers for deputies, including recruitment, background check, and psychometric evaluation, references, and selection processes. 17. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all SCSO policies, procedures, rules, guidelines, standards of practice, and related documents that address SCSO's hiring of deputies, including recruitment, background check, reference, and selection processes. For the number 18. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, a list of all candidates for SCSO deputy positions. For each candidate, please provide the following information. Lord have mercy. More of doing too much. So, okay, let's go down this list here. For each candidate, please provide the following information. Race and or ethnicity. Sex. Date of application, if hired, date of hire, if disqualified, date of and reason for disqualification. F, whether the candidate had prior law enforcement experience, whether the candidate was a lateral hire, and whether the candidate has any family members currently or previously employed by SCSO. I'm trying to see if disqualified, data disqualified. So they're just trying to see here if they have equitable hiring practices. And I suspect that if they are in violation of any of these inequitable hiring practices, they will just have a big rollout. Oh, we have come to Jesus. We have changed in the name of God, and now we have equitable hiring practices. Look, they'll probably do like Dallas and Memphis and hire a black woman police, not knocking a black woman sheriff. I think there's a woman in the position now, so I think they already tried to scramble. I have to see whether or not she's black on that. 19. A complete copy of the post-selection personnel and internal affairs files of Deputy Grayson and the other deputy who responded to Sonia Massey's home on July 6, 2024, including any complaints and investigation-related information related to these deputies. 20. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all SCSO traffic and pedestrian stop data disaggregated by race. So this is, again, Civil Rights Division, classic civil rights. So do you do stop and frisk? Do you do profiling, racial profiling, all that? And again, the outcome will just be a slap on the wrist, a big rollout, and a Juneteenth celebration. 21. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all SCSO use of boards data disaggregated by race, which they probably maybe do. It'd be good. It'd be interesting to see how they track that. 22. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all SCSO dispatch logs, including date, time of the call for service, description, location, and SCSO response time. So I don't know if this disaggregated data is required as on a condition that they receive it. That would be I'd have to check into, what the funding requirements are. For each calendar year, starting with 2020, state how many 911 calls SCCDS received, and the 911 calls received. State how many. A. Sought for help experiencing a possible behavioral health crisis. B. Included information that the person for whom help was sought was a behavioral health disability. 24. For the calls identified in response to request number 23, please identify how many of those calls resulted in a response from SCSO and how many of those calls resulted in a response from each of the other types of responders that SCCDS can dispatch. 25. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, a description of SCSO's processes for SCSO personnel and members of the public to file formal or informal complaints alleging discrimination by SCSO deputies or other personnel. Please include a copy of any complaint forms, procedures, policies, notices, and any other documents related to the process. That's page 6. This was a long letter. And now there are 28 list of demands, mostly based on disability. However, no human rights violations indications here. This is just disability, even though disability does fall within human rights. Our claim as Black people is totally different. 26. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, all written complaints, reports related to discrimination based on race, ethnicity, nation, national origin, or disability made to SCSO. Please include a description of how the complaint or report was addressed or investigated, and any resolution, and provide all related documents and all dash camera. That could be good. And BWC footage related to the police interaction or incident underlying the complaint. So let's see where they get hours of dash camera. I don't know how these people handle that, but certainly they'll probably just get, an officer made a pass at me, a couple, but I don't think that these people track racial complaints very well at all. We just have seen it in our experience, and that's why people get very angry and frustrated, because you try to work within the system and you just come up with nonsense, and they're just be angry. For the period January 1st, 2020 to the present, and all written complaints or reports related to discrimination based on race, ethnicity, origin, or disability to SCCDS, please include a description of how the complaint or report was addressed or investigated and any resolution, and provide all related documents related to the call or incident underlying the complaint. 28. Any other information you would like to transfer to DOJ to consider. That's, That could be, letter, I don't know what that could be, in terms of, well, all right, can I get the local NAACP chapter to say we're good, for them to consider that they're good? Who knows? Good or bad, it could be. This letter addresses only the matters discussed and does not cover any other issues regarding compliance with Title VI, the Safe Streets Act, the ADA, and other federal laws. Under the Freedom of Information Act, DOJ may be required to release information and related correspondence and records shared by recipients and complainants upon request. If we receive the Freedom of Information Act request, we will seek to protect to the extent provided by law information that is subject to applicable FOIA exemption, including personal information that, if released, could constitute an unwarranted invasion of privacy. Title VI, the Safe Streets Act, the ADA also prohibit retaliation under Title VI. This includes any action to intimidate, threaten, coerce, or discriminate against any individual for the purpose of interfering with any right or privilege under Title VI. The ADA similarly prohibits retaliation against anyone who exercises their rights under the ADA or participates in an ADA investigation. Individuals who believe that they have been the target of retaliation may file a complaint with the DOJ. What's a complaint? So I'm not going to read the names of the fine people there at the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ. You may be able to see it on the screen. I'm grateful that they have moved forward to do so. And I know when you're in the context of civil rights, and it's funny how the civil rights movement as a whole, and I don't know if anyone has done the study of this or had some type of editorial on, the contradiction that the civil rights was once anti-establishment, and now there's a civil rights division in the Department of Justice, when historically the Department of Justice have not only violated the civil rights of Black people in America, Afro descendants, but more so the human rights. And now it's kind of subsumed into this Department of Justice, the very Department of Justice that has not protected Black people. But fine, okay, there's a Civil Rights Division. Cool. Thank you for your contribution. However, my appeal and our appeal here at Muhammad Speaks is for us to fight for human rights on behalf of all of our people internationally, because as we can see, we are failed by the system. And here is the police footage. I'm not going to keep it there the whole time, but just, if you could hear, I'm not going to play the sound, but if you can hear what's happened, one of the most dehumanizing things about interaction with police is the way that when they, I'm not even going to say that I'm a grown man. It's not even about I'm an adult. And when you have someone that is talking to you I'm an adult who does adult things, right? Responsible adult things for the most part. At least I try. When you have someone that's talking to you like a child, when you are not in the act of committing a crime, as they have done with our sister, it irks me to hear them talk to someone like that. Because I know how they would talk to me, and I'm like, I've done nothing wrong. Or why are you even talking like that? And it's almost like to incite someone to do wrong or react negatively so they can feel like they are justified in doing harm. And these are the types of things that the Civil Rights Division at the DOJ can't weave into a letter to the Sheriff's Department. They can't weave it into a letter to any law enforcement agency. So these are the frustrating things that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. And our fight collectively is for reparations. So with that said, I don't want this to go in any further because it can make you emotional. And it's like, this is what will happen to you, my brothers and sisters. They're just going to send a letter and they're just going to get slapped on the wrist. Maybe like Bolton Jean's family, you get a payout. And that's, if you're okay with that, that's fine. But we're just bringing you the facts here. And the facts are we need reparations. So salute to the family. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Please consider subscribing to MohammedSpeaksNews.com. $2 a month, $5 a month premium tier, and then you get a free month if you pay for the entire year one time. So 2 times 20, 2 times 12, 24. If you pay for the entire year one time, it's only $22. If you, for the premium plan, which is $5 a month, 5 times 12 is 60. If you pay for the entire year one time for the premium plan, you will only have to pay $55. So please support Black journalism. Please empower us to be able to bring more things like more commentary like this to you. Go check out the website. We have covered this article, and I will look forward to trying to upload the letter to the website so you can look for yourself. And salute to the family. Love you all. Stay safe out there. Peace.
On top of that, they also fast often. So I discovered how incredible my mind feels when fasted. You know, people call it intermittent fasting, but
that's an optimization of death, because when you fast, your body logically and obviously, if you think about it biologically, is, well, what does your body scavenge first? Well, damaged tissue. So I know the literature on fasting to some degree, and it's very compelling literature. If you starve dogs down, I think it's 20% below, rats too, below their optimal body weight, they live 30% longer.
Yeah.
That's a lot, 30%. Like, it's like 30%. Yeah, 30%.
You were asking me earlier about how to eat to live. I had a conversation with a person today, and I was saying, well, you know, we're taught to eat minimum 1 meal a day. And I can remember when I first came in the Nation of Islam some 40 years ago, I started out eating 1 meal a day. I went to 1 meal every 3 days. I went to 1 meal every 7 days. And I stretched out at times 1 meal every 21 days. That is a huge discipline. That is something pretty much inconceivable for most of our people today. Oh, you're going to die. But because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that His Majesty in the person of Master Farad Muhammad left those instructions in order to get to our higher self, I had a desire to want to experience that. And what I experienced was way above what is being offered today in this world. The mind goes somewhere else. I think you told me earlier you did a little fasting and it just readjusted your mind. That's what it's meant to do, because the God is in us. We've been taught to find it somewhere else, but it's in us. And if you want to connect with it, that's why God has prescribed fasting, because that is how you get to the heart.
Can you elaborate on your experience of eating 1 meal in 3 weeks and what effects it had on you mentally and physically?
Eating 1 meal, I did 1 meal. When I did 1 meal in 21 days, it was a struggle. It took strict discipline, but I didn't realize the benefits of eating once every 21 days or once in 21 days until I had eaten. Once I once I began to intake food, it was like jumping out of a plane in a parachute. You can feel yourself coming back down from a very lofty place. So that's when I began to understand somewhat of what was going on there. I was young. I didn't really know what was going on. I just believed in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I wanted to experience what he experienced. I wanted to experience what the Honorable Silas Muhammad experienced, because I can remember several times he would eat once in 40 days. And when he would come and speak to us after that experience, this was a human being that you could feel his mind was somewhere that society just wasn't experiencing. So I wanted some of that, so I attempted to do it as best I could, and I enjoyed the experience. But years later, I saw the benefit of it. As of today, once you open those doors, they don't close. So my mind still today, not to say that I'm better than anyone else or what have you, my mind has its own personal experiences, and it's able to communicate with things in a different way. And I'm not talking about I can talk to chairs or dogs or anything like that. I'm just saying, when I'm dealing with written material, I can see it in a different way, because my mind has been exposed in a different way. When I read something, as I asked you, look at that picture behind me, you don't see anything. That wasn't an insult. It's just that my mind has been trained to see different things. And fasting had a lot to do with it. Knowledge had something to do with it too. But to be able to fast allows you to be able to see things in a sharper way, and the tones in life communicate differently. That's all. I don't want to get into a situation to where I'm, seem like I'm tripping or half tripped or what have you. My reality is very good. My feet are flat on the ground. I'm dealing with our reality. But those are my personal experiences. And that is the reason why His Majesty, in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, brought that to us in order to raise us up out of our lower selves. Because it is food that takes you into your lower self. It begins to kill, or not kill, you can't kill, but it begins to distract you from your higher self, your spirit. Therefore, you become more physical, and you begin to do more physical things. When you eat, it cuts the oxygen from your brain, which causes you to be sleepy. It raises up your sexual desires. If you're eating once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you subdue your sexual desires. So eating 3 meals a day, it can cause you to be sexually conscious 24 hours a day. I mean, it's just that simple. And unless you have experienced some of what I'm talking about, or all of it, or more of it, you may not understand what I'm saying. But I'm just here telling you my experience. I'm not trying to persuade anyone to do as I have done or believe what I'm saying. That's not my case. What I have is mine. And if you want it, you have your own journey. But I'm just saying that is the power in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Well, there is aspect to a lot of these things that make me nervous, because I always feel like there's no free lunch, that I'm going to pay for it somehow. But there is a focus that I am able to attain when I fast, especially when I eat once a day. Mm-hmm. My mind is almost like nervously focused. It's almost like an anxiety, but a positive one, or one that I can channel into just like an excitement.
I wonder how much of that's associated with, well, imagine that signifies lack of food, which is not that hard to imagine. well, maybe you should be a lot more alert in that situation, right? Yeah. Biologically speaking, because you're in hunting mode, let's say, not desperate, but in hunting mode. And God only knows, maybe human beings should be in hunting mode all the time.
Often, but we don't know that. So I wonder if it has a stress on the system that long-term causes the system to
It doesn't look like it.
It seems in case of fasting, not. And then on top of that, I discovered that the thing I just don't enjoy eating fat as much. Mm-hmm. So I love eating meat when you talk about low carb diet. So I just discovered through that process, if somewhat fatty meat, but just meat, I just feel a lot of the things that make me feel weird about food, like a little groggy or like full or just whatever. The aspects of food that I don't enjoy, they're not there with meat. And I'm still able to enjoy company. And when I eat once a day and eat meat, at least in Texas, you could still have all the merriment of you have dinner with friends. Now I don't do this. You have a very serious thing that there's health benefits that you are very serious about. For me, I can still drink whiskey. I'll still do the things that add a little bit of spice into the thing.
Yeah.
Now, when you completely remove the spice, it does become more difficult.
Yeah, it's more difficult socially. And Tammy seems to only be able to eat lamb, although she might be able to eat non-aged beef, and that makes traveling complicated too, right? Because, well, for obvious reasons, it's like, really, that's all you can eat? Yeah, well, c'est la vie. And maybe that's a form of craziness.
So I don't eat more to get bigger. One meal a day is good. I like being hungry most of the day. It keeps my brain firing. When you're hungry, you're on. When you're full, you're not. I feel better when I'm hungry.
So
I think you and I eat similar diets, and at least I was...
the first time I've heard this.
Yeah, so I was doing it...
First time anyone has said that to me, in this case anyway.
Yeah, but it's becoming more and more cool. But I was doing it before it was cool. So the intermittent fasting and fasting in general, I really enjoy. I love food, but I enjoy I also love suffering because I'm Russian. So fasting kind of makes you appreciate makes you appreciate what it is to be human somehow. So. But I have outside the philosophical stuff, I have a more specific question. It also helps me as a programmer and a deep thinker, like from the scientific perspective, to sit there for many hours and focus deeply. Maybe you were a hacker before you were CEO. What have you learned about diet, lifestyle, mindset that helps you maximize mental performance, to be able to focus, to think deeply in this world of distractions?
I think I just took it for granted for too long.
Which aspect?
Just the social structure of we eat 3 meals a day and there's snacks in between, and I just never really asked the question why.
Oh, by the way,
like have a superpower.
Yeah.
And you realize it's not really a superpower. But I think you realize, at least I realized, like it just how much our mind dictates what we're possible of. And sometimes we have structures around us that incentivize, like, this 3 meal a day thing, which is purely social structure versus necessity for our health and for our bodies. And I did it I started doing it because I played a lot with my diet when I was a kid, and I was vegan for 2 years and just went all over the place, just because health is the most precious thing we have, and none of us really understand it. So being able to ask the question through experiments that I can perform on myself and learn about, is compelling to me. And I heard this one guy on a podcast, Wim Hof, who's famous for doing ice baths and holding his breath and all these things. He said he only eats 1 meal a day. I'm like, wow, that sounds super challenging and uncomfortable. I'm gonna do it. So I learn the most when I make myself, I wouldn't say suffer, but when I make myself feel uncomfortable, because everything comes to bear in those moments. and you really learn what you're about or what you're not. So I've been doing that my whole life. Like when I was a kid, I could not speak. Like I had to go to a speech therapist, and it made me extremely shy. And then one day I realized I can't keep doing this, and I signed up for the speech club, and it was the most uncomfortable thing I could imagine doing. Getting a topic on a note card, having 5 minutes to write a speech about whatever that topic is, not being able to use the note card when I was speaking, and speaking for 5 minutes about that topic. So, but it gave me so much perspective around the power of communication, around my own deficiencies, and around if I set my mind to do something, I'll do it. So it gave me a lot more confidence. So I see fasting in the same light. This is something that was interesting, challenging, uncomfortable, and has given me so much learning and benefit as a result. And it will lead to other things that I'll experiment with and play with. But yeah, it does feel a little bit like a superpower sometimes. The most boring superpower one can imagine.
No, it's quite incredible. The clarity of mind is pretty interesting.
Elijah Muhammad's book, How to Eat to Live, emphasizes the importance of diet in achieving physical and spiritual well-being. He advocates for a vegetarian diet, underscoring the benefits of consuming natural, whole foods while avoiding processed items and unhealthy fats. Muhammad highlights the connection between diet and health, arguing that proper nutrition can lead to a longer, healthier life. He promotes the idea that food is not just sustenance, but also a means to elevate one's mind and spirit. Throughout the book, he integrates his teachings on self-discipline and the importance of maintaining a healthy lifestyle as part of a broader philosophy of empowerment and self-reliance within the African American community. The text serves as both a nutritional guide and a spiritual manifesto, reflecting Muhammad's belief that dietary practices are integral to personal and communal development.
People are calling me and telling me, don't say anything, stay in your lane, be quiet, sit down, you will lose your seat, they won't vote for you, fight, don't fight. What the do I have to do in this council in order to get respect as a black woman?
The recent arrest of Boston City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson on federal fraud charges has reignited discussions about the scrutiny faced by black politicians in America. Anderson, who pleaded not guilty to the allegations of funneling money from a related staffer into her own pockets, represents a growing concern regarding racial disparities in how public officials are treated by the legal system and the media.
Councilor, there were conflicting reports about whether maybe federal agents had actually come to your office. Can you sort of clear that up? Can you confirm that that happened?
You're asking, even though I said I cannot.
I just want to get it right. I want the reporting to be correct.
I cannot comment and don't know.
Can you say why you can't comment? Have you been asked?
In an insightful piece from NPR, it was highlighted that black officials are disproportionately investigated for corruption compared to their white counterparts. This pattern raises serious concerns about the motivations behind such investigations and the potential biases at play.
You talked, though, about an ideology, and I find the name of it really fascinating, harassment ideology, as it applies to black politicians. So define what harassment ideology is. And
harassment ideology is a set of ideas that black elected officials and some of their defenders created in the mid-1970s to just try and figure out what was happening to their ranks. Large numbers of them were being investigated. And when I say large numbers, I mean in 1971, every single member of the Congressional Black Caucus was under investigation by the CIA.
Every single member?
Plus the IRS or the Nixon White House. And so when they came to figure out what was happening, they came up with this idea of harassment ideology. Basically the notion that the government and news media have an adversarial relationship toward black elected officials. usually expressed through oppression of some sort.
And so, is it true?
The disparity in scrutiny not only affects the individuals involved, but also perpetuates harmful stereotypes about Black leadership and governance. The implications of Anderson's case extend beyond her personal situation. It reflects a broader narrative where Black politicians are often presumed guilty before they have had the chance to defend themselves. The media portrayal of Anderson, along with swift actions of federal agents, can contribute to a toxic environment where Black leaders are viewed with suspicion, regardless of their actual conduct. Moreover, this trend can discourage qualified individuals from pursuing careers in public service. The fear of being unfairly targeted and scrutinized can deter talented leaders from stepping into roles that are crucial to serving people and representation and development. This cycle of mistrust and fear can undermine the very democratic processes that we hold dear.
The government has the right to investigate information that it has that a crime may or may not have been committed. And that's really the step we're in right now.
Boston city officials staying tight-lipped as well.
I'm not going to speculate.
Not going to speculate. I mean, you were on city council at one point in your life, probably dealt with controversy during that time. Any advice to the council on how they move forward?
I think we have to let the facts unfold.
As we reflect on Anderson's arrest, it is crucial to advocate for equitable treatment for all public officials, regardless of race. We must demand transparency and fairness from both law enforcement and the media. Investigations into corruption should be conducted without bias, ensuring that all individuals are afforded the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. In closing, Tanya Fernandez Anderson's situation serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by Black politicians in America. It is imperative that we support efforts to dismantle systemic biases and work toward a more just and equitable political landscape. Only then can we hope to foster an environment where all leaders are judged by their actions rather than the color of their skin.
People are calling me and telling me, don't say anything. Stay in your lane. Be quiet. Sit down. You will lose your seat. They won't vote for you. Fight. Don't fight. What the do I have to do in this council in order to get respect as a Black woman? And I'm going to tell you, I am not afraid of losing the votes. I'm not afraid of the seats. I'm not afraid of anybody here. This is the message that I got.
They're all fucking nutbags. Don't forget the country is built with white people, sustained by white people. The presidents all back in the day were white. If you don't like it, why don't you take your ass back to your shithole? We can still put that off on your head. You're going to put off in hole.
This is what I get. I get about 3 or 4 of them in my office. I have 2 sons. I've made mistakes. And once I learned it, I corrected immediately.
The history of surveillance of Black and brown people goes back to the time of slavery. Going through the 20th century, surveillance tactics continued against Black and brown people.
The pervasive use of high-tech surveillance technologies in Black communities in Atlanta is not just a modern-day concern, but a continuation of historical patterns of oppression, targeting marginalized populations as test subjects for unvetted technologies is a grave injustice that perpetuates systemic racism and control over Black people.
We know in the 18th century in New York City, there were lantern laws that required Black and Indigenous people to carry around a candle after sunset if they were in the city. Going through the 20th century, surveillance tactics continued against Black and brown people. J. Edgar Hoover, as director of the FBI, required that all Black college students be surveilled. In the mid-'80s, the DEA instituted Operation Pipeline to stop Black and brown drivers and to question them and potentially detain them based on a fight against the war on drugs. And that continues to this day.
Rather than promoting public safety, these technologies serve as tools for monitoring and criminalizing Blackness. Surveillance practices in Atlanta, deeply intertwined with a legacy of oppressive laws like the Black Codes and Jim Crow, highlight a sinister truth. These technologies are not about safety, but about reinforcing racial and economic hierarchies.
So while, no, I don't want to be mugged, I want to be in a community that's safe, I don't think expanding surveillance is the way to do that.
There is just a lot of technology being acquired that's collecting information on everyone, regardless of whether you're involved in a crime or not. And I don't want to end up in a version of America where people are afraid to do things in life because of being watched all the time.
By treating Black neighborhoods as occupied territories, authorities instill fear and compliance, echoing the tactics of oppressive regimes. The militarized policing tactics enabled by surveillance technologies create a climate of control and intimidation, akin to psychological warfare.
A security guard stops you, wants to ask you questions. He writes down your name, the details on your driver's license, asks where you live, where you work. He reads your information into a radio. He says surveillance cameras captured you taking photos of a location considered vulnerable to security threats, like terrorism. Terrorism, you think? No, not me. He takes your camera, looks through the photos, and confiscates the memory card. He pats you down for weapons. Weapons? This is crazy, you say. What have I done wrong? It's entirely possible you've broken no known rules or laws at all. You didn't see any signs banning photos. But this is the new reality of a post-9/11 America. Let's rewind a bit. After the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, then-President George W. Bush deeply reorganized the federal government and created a massive new Department of Homeland Security. The U.S. government was determined never to miss intelligence again. No lead would be unfollowed, no stone unturned. Part of this new department's job was to give billions in Homeland Security grants to state and local agencies, so they could participate in the fight against terrorism. Hundreds of millions of those dollars were used to build more than 70 intelligence fusion centers across the U.S. Inside these command centers, local police and sheriffs joined forces with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and other federal agencies. Their mission is to collect, analyze, and share vast amounts of information about possible criminal and terrorist threats. And from their perspective, you could be one of them. See, after that security guard wrote down all of your personal information, it may have become a suspicious activity report, beginning a journey from his notepad to the local police department and then on to a fusion center. At the fusion center, your data can be put into a database, where it may be kept indefinitely. Your info could then be accessed by other law enforcement agencies, like nearby police departments and the FBI. An FBI agent could even come knocking at your door. This won't happen to everyone, but suspicious activity reporting appears to be on the rise. More than 15,000 reports are already stored in one national law enforcement database, with only half of states participating so far. In D.C., researchers examined 40,000 suspicious person and vehicle calls made over 20 months from 2005 to 2007. None were confirmed terrorist threats. 200 were deemed potential threats. Here's how it works. In LA, a dry cleaning employee found a thumb drive in a customer's dirty laundry. On it were photos of the Burbank airport. The employee called police, and they filed a suspicious activity report. At the Mall of America in Minnesota, an elderly Pakistani man left his cell phone on a food court table. When he came back for it, security guards had created a perimeter around the phone and other unattended items that weren't his. He was interrogated, and an FBI agent later showed up at his family's home. This is life in America since hijackers killed 3,000 people in terrorist attacks a decade ago. Since then, we've had no major attacks in the U.S. But civil liberties watchdogs say some of our basic freedoms may be at risk, like freedom of movement, freedom from harassment by police, and the right to be treated as innocent until proven guilty.
from license plate readers to AI analytics. These tools mimic strategies of war zones, emphasizing tracking and targeting individuals rather than fostering community well-being. It is imperative to recognize that the deployment of surveillance in Black communities is not a matter of safety, but a mechanism of subjugation and domination. As a society, we must challenge these practices, advocate for transparency, and demand accountability to dismantle the systemic injustices perpetuated by these technologies. Peace and blessings to the family. This is Brother Afro-Descendant Ali here with a Muhammad Speaks very special report where we will be just providing information about the recent lawsuit given about a week ago where Malcolm X's family files for a $100 million wrongful death lawsuit against the United States government. So here the family is alleging that the government has their fingerprints all over the assassination, according to Vibe magazine, and we are reporting this on the Muhammad Speaks website as well. Attorneys for the family of the late civil rights leader Malcolm X are officially moving forward with an explosive $100 million lawsuit against the United States government and several government agencies. According to the lawsuit, which was filed on Friday, November 15th, X's attorneys have accused the government, Department of Justice, FBI, CIA, and NYPD of being complicit or turning a blind eye to X's murder in 1965. The government's fingerprints are all over the assassination of Malcolm X, civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump said during a press conference announcing the lawsuit. We believe we have evidence to prove it. We're using copies of, we're actually going to be looking at the lawsuit itself coming up shortly. This seems to be spearheaded by Malcolm X's daughter, Ilyasa Shabazz. If you haven't liked Muhammad Speaks, please subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to our website, www.muhammadspeaksnews.com. Continuing on, Shabazz touched on her late mother and X's widow, Betty Shabazz, giving her the motivation to press forward with their mission to hold those responsible for her father's death accountable. It has been a long time to get to this point, and we fought primarily for our mother, who was here on February 21st, 1965, said Shabazz. My mother was pregnant, but she came here to see her husband speak, someone who she just admired totally, and to witness the horrific assassination of her husband. Let's take a look at the press conference here, spearheaded by attorney Benjamin Crump.
Ready? Okay. Good morning. I'm attorney Ben Crump, along with attorney Ray Hanlon, attorney Nabiha Shear, attorney Brooke Cluse, and attorney Flint from the People's Law Firm, and attorney Jonathan Moore from here in New York City. We have the honor of representing the estate of Malcolm X. We have present here with us, most importantly, his daughter, Ilyasa Shabazz, who is the personal representative of the estate and working along with her family to get the justice that has eluded them for almost 60 years. I want to take a point to talk about the great team of legal warriors that have been assembled to fight this battle. Attorney Ray Hanlon has been fighting with the family for over a decade. He hails out of New Jersey. Attorney Flint Taylor is a stalwart civil rights lawyer. He represented the family of Fred Hampton when COINTELPRO federal government-led assassination killed Brother Fred in his home next to his wife. He never gave up on getting justice for Fred Hampton, and he has vowed not to give up on getting justice for Malcolm X. So we're very proud to have him assembled with our team. Also, we have present with us a good friend, an old foxhole warrior that we fought many battles with. The one that is most storied for him is his gallant representation of the Exonerated Five, formerly known as the Central Park Five, and how he fought for 11 years, steadfastly committed, never ever taking his eyes off the prize. And we're so honored to have him as the local counsel with us in this war. Attorney Nabiha Shear, a young, brilliant, courageous lawyer, has been working with young lawyers in our firm and the People's Law Firm night and day for almost 3 years now to go through FBI files, any state attorney files, district attorney files that have been released, to dot every I and cross every T. And along with Attorney Brooke Cluse and myself, we are just ready for this fight. As we come up on the eve of the 60-year anniversary into the assassination of Malcolm X, we here today officially announce the filing of our $100 million lawsuit against the United States government, the FBI, the CIA, and the NYPD, who we believe all conspired to assassinate Malcolm X, one of the greatest thought leaders of the 21st century.
And shout out to Attorney Crump, using his legal expertise to fight on the side of justice for our people. Many accuse him of being a simple ambulance chaser, but in many cases he does help the family. This is a case that seems to be someone a bit out of his scope because it does challenge other agencies outside of law enforcement. We know the FBI is law enforcement, but the CIA is just a little different than the simple local, state, county, and national. In the case of the FBI, this is something that's a little different, maybe outside of the scope, and we hope that this uncovers this. The reason why this is a specific interest for Muhammad Speaks News is that the assassination of Malcolm X especially since the advent of the motion picture X, directed by Spike Lee, starring Denzel Washington. This has been something that has been an albatross around the neck of the legacy of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the lost found nation of Islam. There has been somewhat a tension between the greater so-called African American community, somewhat, and the lost found nation of Islam as a result of that movie, mainly, and other media such as the autobiography of Malcolm X, where there has been some speculation that a lot of that was fabricated as well on the behalf of Alex Haley. And there were rumors that he was some type of government operative as well. In addition to, there are rumors that there were the other piece of literature that he produced in Roots were also embellished. So a lot of these things, they don't see the light of day. And it seems like, in addition to, I wouldn't want to be Ilyasa Shabazz, having living the majority of her life. This is 60 years now. Malcolm X will be 99 years old, almost 100. He died a very young man. And these were young girls living in the shadow of the legacy of their father who didn't raise them. And this is pretty much consumed their entire life. This man, Malcolm X. So I empathize with the children with regard to, they don't know. And they've been, in just my personal observation, they seem to be trying to piece it together. They're trying to get clarity. And good for Ilyasa for continuing to fight the good fight. And to me, this is an indication that, at least in her mind, the Lost Foundation of Islam is not guilty of the murder and assassination of Malcolm X. And I hope this really sees the light of day. This topic definitely, in most cases, doesn't generally get the exposure that it needs to, because in many people's mind, it's an open and closed case. Where the most common narrative is that the Nation of Islam is somehow guilty of this. And as we can see here, the family of Malcolm X himself, they actually believe that the government was complicit in the assassination, hence this $100 million lawsuit. I want to take a turn back to the article itself. And we also have an article just outlining the details on Muhammad Speaks News. If you haven't seen our website, visit us at MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. MuhammadSpeaksNews.com. Please subscribe. We have a $2 per month plan, and we promise to bring you news from the black world here at Muhammad Speaks. But to go on with the article, the Shabazz family's plan to take legal action against the government and its agencies were first announced by Crump in February 2023, on the 58th anniversary of Malcolm X's murder, which occurred at Harlem's former Audubon Ballroom in 1965. The lawsuit gained legs in 2021, when Nation of Islam members Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam, two of the three men convicted of gunning down X, were exonerated, and their murder convictions overturned after it was determined the men were innocent. As Aziz and Islam's release were largely due to the confession of Mujahid Abdul Halim, the third convicted gunman in the case, who told authorities that the pair was innocent and not involved in the assassination. Aziz and Islam's family would later receive a combined $36 million in lawsuit settlements related to their wrongful convictions. So in that article, as you can see, the story of the Nation of Islam being complicit in the murder of Malcolm X just not being true, as you had members of the Nation of Islam who were
inside Harlem's Audubon Ballroom in 1965.
Convicted at the time, but were simply not
of the three men found guilty of his murder.
So let's take a look here.
Civil rights leader, Firebrand.
At some
we
of
invested
the,
310 years of slave labor.
You know, some
Make
of the
him give
media
up the back pay.
around the
His assassination inside Harlem's Audubon Ballroom in 1965 was a wound to the heart of Black America. Of the three men found guilty of his murder, two were wrongfully convicted.
Two people were not inside of the ballroom the day that Malcolm was shot.
Their case finally reopened, correcting a miscarriage of justice.
We are moving today to vacate the conviction of Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam for the assassination of Malcolm X.
Nobody was listening.
Malcolm X, revolutionary, civil rights leader, Firebrand.
We invested 310 years of slave labor. Make him give us the back pay.
His assassination inside Harlem's Audubon Ballroom in 1965 was a wound to the heart of Black America. Of the three men found guilty of his murder, two were wrongfully convicted.
Two people were not inside of the ballroom the day that Malcolm was shot.
Their case finally reopened, correcting a miscarriage of justice.
We are moving today to vacate the convictions of Muhammad Aziz and Khalil Islam for the assassination of Malcolm X.
Nobody was listening.
But the world is listening now.
Oh, yeah.
By 1965, Malcolm X had enemies. He had split from the Nation of Islam, and he was under surveillance by the FBI.
There's a moment in 1964 when J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director, sends a telegram to his office located in New York. And basically he says, quote, "Do something about Malcolm X."
The role that the FBI played, they knew how to exploit, right, the tensions, and they spread suspicion and hatred through the ranks against Malcolm.
On February 21st, 1965, it all came to a head, just as Malcolm X was to deliver a speech at the Audubon Ballroom.
He walked out onto the stage. Then a man stepped up 15 feet from the stage. He crouched, took perfect aim, and blasted right through the lectern into Malcolm's heart.
One gunman, Talmadge Hare, now Mujahideen Abdul Halim, was arrested fleeing the scene.
What's your wire? What's your wire?
Later, the
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. So as we can see, we have, let's go back here. Well, looks like audio is not cooperating. Sorry about that, family. But as you can see, you have people who vacated the scene, who were not even at the scene, who were falsely convicted and spent many years in prison. Members arrested and convicted simply because they were members of the Nation of Islam. That's horrible. There's no amount of money that can reward these men for a life lived, and even to the degree that Khalil Islam received his payout shortly before he passed away. Hopefully his family can live off of that, and it compensates them for the loss of years and earnings that he was not able to provide for them. And, that leaves a legacy for them. However, you only live one life, and when it's over, it's over. And we can't waste time. And for all these people, and salute to those who have spent many years and been exonerated because DNA proved that they were not guilty of whatever crimes that they were convicted of. But, you live one life and you can't get those years back. No amount of money can give those years back to people who are wrongfully convicted. And I think that this should not be glossed over by our people. So let's go back to the actual press release, the press conference with Attorney Benjamin Crump, who will give some details about surrounding the actual lawsuit and the evidence they have.
We believe there is solid ground to go forward with this lawsuit at this time. We're not just making history, but we're making a path for justice. We believe a precedent setting path for justice for those who have been denied justice by the American legal system for far too long. It has been a long journey, also 3 years almost. And I know
Sorry about that.
We have been unearthing new evidence, evidence of people never having spoken before about what had that testimony before. Also, Saeed and Walter, two young men who were part of Malcolm's regular security, were arrested the week before after they had been entrapped by Raymond Wood, an undercover NYPD officer who was working in cahoots with the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And we now know that Raymond Wood was also present here in the Audubon Theater the day that Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st, 1965. Walter and Saeed have both sworn affidavits that they believe their entrapment and arrest and being in prison and in the jail the week before Malcolm's assassination was all part of the conspiracy to make sure that the assassination attempt on Malcolm X's life was successful. Walter is 93 years old, and he, for the first time, swore an affidavit as to what they believe happened on February 21st, 1965. And we know that there were 9 police officers undercover in this room when Malcolm was assassinated. And we know that Eugene Roberts was also one of the undercover black police officers who had been assigned to infiltrate the black resistance organizations like CORE, like the Nation of Islam, like Malcolm X's Afro-American Unity. The government fingerprints are all over the assassination of Malcolm X. And finally, we believe we have the evidence to prove it. And you're going to hear from these great lawyers before you hear from his daughter about why we feel so convicted at this moment in time as we come up on the 60th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X to say that we will finally get to justice and truth about not only the assassination of Malcolm X, but the orchestrating assassination of Malcolm X. At this time,
Excellent call out from Attorney Crump regarding the infiltration of various law enforcement agencies within the United States into many of these organizations, to include the Organization of Afro-American Unity and the Nation of Islam. This should not be swept under the rug that the United States government did have agents within those organizations.
I give you a great lawyer, a person who's been with the family over the years, a great Omega man, Attorney Ray Hamlin.
Thank you, Mr. Crump. As we stand here today in the center, it's a place of hope on behalf of the Shabazz family. Almost 60 years ago, though, this was a place of unspeakable tragedy and pain. It is a testament to the family who has been living with the burdens of what happened in 1965. And the fact that they are continuing, along with these lawyers, to seek justice for Malcolm X. And I want you to think about something for a moment. When Attorney Crump was talking about Mr. Hassan, the fact of the matter is, Mustafa Hassan was present on the date that Malcolm X was assassinated. He is prominently displayed in these photographs. Why would it be that no one, for almost 57 years, never heard from him, never spoke to him, never took a statement from him? This is law enforcement who has the ability to question witnesses, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the city of New York. Why wouldn't they speak to someone whose presence is so prominent? Fortunately, because this fight has been going on for decades, we had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Hassan. And Mr. Hassan finally came forward to provide the information that he's been holding for all those decades. So you ask yourself this last question. Why would the government prosecute two individuals knowing those individuals had no involvement in the assassination? What was it that our government, that the city was trying to protect? We all believe that there were powers at be in motion to try to silence Malcolm X, to try to silence his message. We are here today to make sure that justice is served, and we will ensure that his message lives on and that he will not be silenced. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Hamlin. And now we will hear from this young, brilliant attorney, Nabi Hashir, who has went through every aspect of all the files that have been released pertaining to the exoneration of those who were wrongfully convicted for killing Malcolm X, to every bit of information that we have been able to get from the FBI files, even though we know there's more out there that exists. And so you're going to hear from her as we continue to try to make the case for Mayor Eric Adams, the Attorney General of the United States, and all others who have authority to make a decision in this matter, to decide that now is the right time to give Malcolm X the justice that he and his family deserve. Attorney Nabi Hashir.
Good morning, and thank you for your coverage of this significant time as we fight to right the historic wrongs of our justice system and our country's governance. Our legal teams are honored to work with these inspirational daughters. Ms. Shabazz, Thank you for allowing us to work with you to fight for your father. I want to take a moment to make sure everyone knows who Malcolm X was. Yes, he was a father, a husband, a community member, but he was also a man who genuinely fought for us and had a vision of what we could be. He shared his visions with us in speeches given in June of 1964 about how the problem of the black man needed to be taken away from the hands of the United States government and instead put before the United Nations, where he believed that this world body would be able to have the power to hold the United States accountable for the illegal and criminal injustices that they committed against their people. In January 1965, Malcolm said in an interview with the CBC, "We believe that our problem is not a violation of civil rights, but of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we are denied the right to be a human being." Couldn't Malcolm have said these same words today? Haven't
So, just wanted to chime in here. We at Muhammad Speaks and followers of the Honorable Silas Muhammad, the Honorable Silas Muhammad's pursuit of reparations and self-determination in the international bodies, specifically within the United Nations, have pursued, in the spirit of Malcolm X and the spirit of justice, human rights. This is, and Malcolm was indeed right. This is about human rights. So thank you for pointing that out, Attorney Nabia.
we seen the same forms of repression happen today? This is the legacy that we fight for the future Malcolm knew America could have. Federal and state agencies targeted Malcolm and described him as a black extremist, labeled black organizations as hate groups, and developed a systemic and illegal war on the black movement. Malcolm knew that these efforts to repress his justice movement existed, yet he remained steadfast, uncompromising, and unwavering in his beliefs, and unapologetically proud to be black. This terrified the United States so greatly that the FBI New York special agent sent a letter to J. Edgar Hoover on December of 1964. He called for extra coverage and extra surveillance of Malcolm X's activities, since Malcolm intended to have the issue of the oppression of black Americans brought before the United Nations. Just 2.5 months later, Malcolm was assassinated.
And here is the key part. When he threatened to go before international bodies, specifically the United Nations, he was assassinated. This is not a petty jealousy plot between the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X. Don't miss the message here, my people. This is not the Nation of Islam calling this out. This is an independent third-party person who has no interest in the Lost Foundation of Islam. This is someone who is an outside party who is confirming that Malcolm X was assassinated because he was looking for human rights.
In Malcolm's memory, we honor his legacy by remaining steadfast in our fight for justice for every single just cause, including his.
Thank you very much, Attorney Scheer, for your commitment to this case. It is inspirational. Next, you will hear from elder in the legal profession who did something that many people thought couldn't be done. Hold the government to account, the federal government to account for killing a black man. He did it, set a precedent, and we still have some more precedent to set, Flint, from the People's Law Firm in Chicago, Illinois. We welcome you, Flint, again in these holograms. Yes.
Thank you. It's truly an honor to stand here with all these wonderful lawyers, and particularly with the family, Miliasa, and to be honored to be asked to work on this case. This is an international human rights case. It's not just a civil rights case, it's a human rights case. And it is a case that now I stand here almost 55 years. Yes, December 4th, 1969 was the infamous day in Chicago when the Chicago police, together with the prosecutor of Cook County, and yes, secretly, the FBI and its COINTELPRO program went in the stealth of night and murdered and assassinated young, vibrant Black Panther leader Fred Hampton. And it took us 13 years to uncover the depth of that conspiracy that, like the case with Malcolm X, implicated not only those police and not only those prosecutors, but yes, the FBI and its COINTELPRO program. And what we learned back then was the outline of what we're now uncovering in this case. And that is that COINTELPRO was designed by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI to secretly disrupt and, yes, destroy Black organizations, and particularly Black organizations that were challenging the government, and that organizations that were fighting for coalitions, were fighting to work with other groups in this country and internationally to bring justice and to fight against white supremacy. And we learned at that time that one of the initial people that they targeted was Malcolm X. And then they targeted Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael. And yes, the Black Panthers some 5 years after the assassination of Malcolm. So I was asked to come in this case, and as I said, it's an honor to be here, to look at the evidence that started to come out about the FBI's role and its connection to the New York Police Department and its bossy after the exoneration of the two men in November of 2021. And that's why we talk about a 3-year investigation that we've been involved in, because then it became known that the FBI secretly hid all these years the fact that there were 9 FBI informants in this ballroom, that one of the men, the man who carried the shotgun and actually assassinated Malcolm X, had heavy connections to the FBI and may well have been an FBI informant. He certainly was given favors after the fact. We're looking for his file. They're trying to say it may have been destroyed, but that's some of the stuff that we're looking for in this case. And the parallels are very patent. The parallels between the assassination of Fred Hampton and the assassination of Malcolm X. And that's why I'm here. That's why my office is here. And that's why we've joined together to honor the name of Malcolm X, to fight for his family, however long it may take for the government and for the the New York Police Department to take note of this case and to make justice and to give reparations to the family and to the people who have fought all these years for justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Flint Taylor, and all the resources and institutional knowledge you bring to this fight based on your years, 13 years of fighting for justice for Fred Hampton. We pray that it should not take that long to get justice for Malcolm X. And the final attorney you will hear from this morning
is one of your own, New York's finest, in a different sense.
Yeah. Sure.
Attorney Jonathan Moore fought for justice for so many, Eric Gardner and others, and exonerated 5. We are so honored to have him working alongside with us, as we know he will stay the course. And as we talk with Mayor Adams and the city of New York, we want to have somebody who is very keenly aware of navigating those aspects as he did, fighting for 11 years to get justice for the exonerated 5. Attorney Jonathan Moore.
Thank you very much, Ben. First of all, let me say what an honor it is to stand up in this podium next to Ilyasha Shabazz, who is a hero for all of us in terms of her staying true to this struggle to get justice for Malcolm X and for his family as well. And it's really an honor of my career, of my lifetime, to be on the stage with her. This will be a long fight. This will be a hard fight. Hopefully not as long as some of the fights we've been involved in, but we will not give up until we have justice for Malcolm X and for his family. This is, in a sense, about a reparations case. This is about remedying a wrong that happened many years ago that has not been dealt with by the federal government or the city government. And we know that there's strong evidence, witness the exoneration of the 2 people who were originally convicted of it, that the governments, the 2 governments, the city of New York and the federal government, conspired to, we believe, eliminate Malcolm X as a incredibly dynamic political figure in this country back in 1965, and to then cover it up for many, many, many years. We will turn over every rock. We will open up every drawer. We will look at every file to get the truth about what happened to Malcolm X. And I'm happy to join with Attorney Ben Crump and with my brother Ray McClain here, and with Fred Hamlin. I'm sorry, I said Ray. Ray Hamlin. Ray Hamlin, and with my longtime colleague Flint Taylor, in this struggle to get justice for Malcolm X and for the family of Malcolm X. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much. And as we hear from get ready to hear from our final speaker, the daughter of Malcolm X, Ilyasha Shabazz, who will make a brief statement before we take your questions. I want to acknowledge some great lawyers on our team who are not present here, but deserve just as much respect and credit. And that is Attorney Desiree Austin Holliday, Attorney Ben Elson, and Attorney Luna Drewby. They have been just battle warriors for Malcolm X's journey to justice. But we come to the final person who, man, I remember it was after Trayvon when we first talked, Ilyasha. That was in 2013. About will we ever get justice? And it's been a long journey. And I remember the hope after the other 2 brothers were exonerated for being wrongfully convicted for killing your father. And you said, Attorney Crump, this gives me hope. And so we're finally here today. And I know you've been so patient as we've worked so hard to get to this point where we finally get to file the lawsuit. So I know we still have a long way to go, but this day in and of itself is a small victory in your personal journey. I present to you one of the daughters of Malcolm X, Ilyasha Shabazz, Dr. Ilyasha Shabazz.
And salute to the attorneys here. What can you say? It takes a lot to wrangle with this legal system, and it takes a lot of experience. I mean, you just listen to the resumes of the attorneys that have spoken here. They've worked on some high-profile cases. You exonerated 5, Eric Garner, Attorney Crump is on everything. It takes that kind of experience to wrangle with the government and wrangle with the CIA, and it takes a lot of courage, and a few of them seem a little older, so maybe they're considering their age. They're like, we have nothing to lose at this point. But salute to the team of attorneys. And I know, the commentary on that particular thing, there are white attorneys here, and the other attorney who worked on Fred Hampton's case, 13 years. These things drag out. It takes endurance. It takes guts. It takes strength. And you see the white people here, but certainly we have some black attorneys here. But, sometimes they bring the humility and the will and endurance, and you could just feel the passion in the second one there who spoke regarding the privilege and the honor was in the highlight of his career. And I believe that when he says that, like, you almost have to fetishize justice, to get it. So salute to the team of attorneys.
Thank you. So it has taken us a long time to get to this point, and we fought primarily for our mother, who was here on February 21st, 1965, when just a week prior her home was firebombed, as she and her husband lay in bed as husband and wife, with the bomb thrown into the nursery where my sisters and I, age 6, 4, 2, and not quite 1, slept. My mother was pregnant when she came here to see her husband speak, someone who she just admired totally. And to witness this horrific assassination of her husband. It's this photo over here where we see my mother, who was a registered nurse, care for her husband, loosen his tie, give him the comfort that he needed. She attempted to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. She turned this place, which represented trauma, tragedy, and turned it into a place of triumph, not for herself, but for others, to be the beneficiaries of my father's work, this young generation to carry this work forward so we can get a semblance of truth and justice for all of those who have been wrongfully murdered. And so I'm grateful on behalf of my sisters, my 5 sisters, to stand here with a competent, ethical group of experts, legal experts, as we seek justice for the assassination of our father, and that the truth will be recorded in history.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shabazz. Thank you. We will take your questions if you have any. Yes, sir.
So we're going to stop it right there. That concludes the press conference. A lot of passion, a lot of good information here. And you see legal work in action, coordinating a press conference, getting in as many competent attorneys as possible. doing years of research, specialists in this particular area of fighting for justice, particularly for those who have fought on behalf of Black people and have faced injustice from the American government. Just for people simply trying to do right for their people in the area of human rights. And, here at Muhammad Speaks News, we hope that this inches us closer to exonerating the legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Lost Foundation of Islam, and opens the eyes of our people that, whether people want to produce movies for entertainment, like these have real life implications, real world implications, and that our people shouldn't take these celebrities seriously anymore. Like we've had enough of them guiding us, giving us history, and mainly guiding us in the wrong direction. And it's time for us to go into the right direction. And that right direction is self-determination and doing something for self. And with that said, please don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel, share this video. Also visit our website, www.muhammadspeaksnews.com. We have a subscription sale, $2 a month or $5 a month, $2 standard plan, $5 premium plan. And we also have advertisements that we will be selling on the website as well, as low as $25 a month on a website that's frequently visited. We do a refresh of the news every week. And salute